Here's a road more than 4,000 meters above sea level, surrounded by mountains, vastness, and two superpowers. But it's not just any road. It's a mysterious mountain location where the Chinese and Indian military meet to fight till death in hand-to-hand combat because guns are not allowed here. Yes, all of that is actually true, and it's happened just a couple of years ago. Welcome to the Himalayas, the tallest mountain range on the planet that separates China from India. It's also the longest border dispute in the world. This line here is called the line of actual control. It's the de facto border separating Chinese-controlled territories from Indian-controlled territories, and neither side really agree on where to draw it. Ironically, the only thing the two nations can agree on is that this line isn't the actual border. It's a loose demarcation and both make claims on land beyond it. In practice, the border lies where the two militaries stand. And the LAC has been in place since October 1962. That year, while most of the global community was focused on the Cuban Missile Crisis, China and India went to war over this border region. The high-altitude squabble ended in a dominant Chinese win, and as a result, China occupied the region of Aksai Chin. China felt that Aksai Chin had long been a part of the Chinese empires. It was also strategically essential for connecting the regions of Xinjiang and Tibet. India, on the other hand, claims that Aksai Chin is part of the Indian region of Ladakh. For the following half a decade, the disputed border region stayed relatively stable until, in the early 2000s, India started building a new road. India wanted to connect its remote military base in Daulat Beg Oldi to the rest of its infrastructure in Ladakh. This road, called the DSDBO road, traverses through the Karakoram range right along the Shiok River and the line of actual control. It also passes by one of the critical locations of the 1962 Sino-Indian War, the Galwan Valley. This valley holds crucial importance still to this day. It's the only direct point of access from Ladakh to Aksai Chin Plateau, and this new road passes right next to it. Therefore, China saw the road as a provocation. India was improving its logistics, enabling faster movement of troops and equipment in the event of a conflict. The road also ensures all-weather access to India's airfield near the Karakoram Pass. China demonstrated its disapproval of the road by increasing its military presence along the LAC. In the spring of 2020, tensions rose as India declared Chinese troops to have crossed the LAC into Indian-controlled territory. The Chinese were said to have pitched up to 80 tents on Indian land. Formal calls for de-escalation were made and agreed on. Then, as the Indian forces went to verify the promised Chinese disengagement, they found tents and structures still standing. The Indians decided to dismantle the structures, and then, on June 15th, 2020, a fight broke out. And remember, guns are banned, so this was a good old fistfight in the freezing highlands. Reports estimate that the fight took place somewhere in this area around Patrol Point 14 in the Galwan Valley. Regardless of the firearm ban, the brawl still ended up being a deadly clash, resulting in deaths of soldiers on both sides. The actual starting cause of the melee has never been confirmed. Both sides blamed the other for escalating the standoff to a physical altercation. Though the fighting ended quickly, the pettiness didn't. Later that year, the PLA swept from punches to loudspeakers and started taunting their Indian counterparts by blasting Punjabi music into the valley.
Chinese troops have set up loudspeakers that belt out Punjabi numbers at their forward posts. Let's take a look.
So, what were the consequences of this border skirmish? 2020 most certainly changed the course of this decades-long border dispute. From a Chinese perspective, the region of Aksai Chin is enormously important not only to ensure national security of its borders, but also to manage domestic order, especially to keep Tibet under Beijing's control. Tibet is a region with a strong separatist movement, and India has long been a significant host to Tibetan diaspora, most prominently including the Dalai Lama himself, who fled Tibet in 1959 and set up a government in exile in Dharamshala. From Beijing's perspective, that makes India not just a neighbor, but a symbolic threat to its control over Tibet. So for China, geography is essential to maintain stability in Tibet, because if you look at the map, you can see that Tibet is just a whole bunch of emptiness, untraversable, unpopulated terrain, and if you zoom in, you can see that there's only one road that crosses the whole region, and that road, the G219, goes through Aksai Chin. So, if India was to capture Aksai Chin, it would cut off all Chinese road access to Tibet from the west, certainly a scenario that Beijing would never allow. Therefore, any increase in Indian activity near the LAC in Ladakh rings alarm bells in the Chinese capital. And the clash of June 2020 showed just that. Since the two militaries exchanged haymakers in the mountains, the arms race for infrastructure development along the western LAC has surged. Just by comparing satellite pictures from before and after, you can see how India has significantly increased its presence along the DSDBO road. If you zoom along the satellite imagery in the area, you can see a bunch of new stations pop up, as well as old existing stations being expanded. The Indians have since broke ground for another, even more ambitious road project to Daulat Beg Oldi. Additionally, they expanded the capacities of the Daulat Beg Oldi airfield and deployed more capable aircraft to be based in the region. Similar development can be seen on the Chinese side of the LAC in Aksai Chin. China's strategy, though, goes beyond iron posturing. In early 2025, China announced that it has created 2 new counties that cover the entire Aksai Chin plateau. And this isn't mere bureaucratic reshuffling, it's a cartographic statement. Beijing asserted strategy through maps. In August 2023, when China published its new standard map, it sent shockwaves through the global community. With several disputed regional claims, China didn't just seek diplomatic recognition. It set out to normalize its claims, to anchor them in maps, in place names, and in administrative structures. China has renamed several locations along the line of actual control. By exchanging original place names to Chinese names, Beijing solidifies its claim to the region. And there's more. First, you change the name, and then you slowly creep up further and further into the region. A strategy known as salami slicing. What China often does is slowly build new infrastructure into a disputed region, like they did here in Bhutan, or here, or here. Then they just act as if that area is Chinese. It's a discreet yet assertive tactic. So, as you can see, the Sino-Indian border is thousands of kilometers of dispute, drama, and gray hairs for both sides. And what makes the westernmost corner of this border especially burdensome for India is that in Ladakh, India isn't just beefing with China, but also with its other arch-rival, Pakistan. Pakistan claims all of this territory, and, siding with China, it recognizes Beijing's claim to Aksai Chin, as well as this slice here, called the Trans-Karakoram Tract, and, in exchange, China recognizes Pakistan's claim in Kashmir. India is squeezed between 2 stubborn rivals, meaning it has no choice but to maintain an assertive presence. So the region is stuck in a cycle that feeds itself. One side builds, the other responds. One expands patrols, the other fortifies positions. With every tent, airstrip, or administrative district, the room for negotiation shrinks. The line of actual control was never meant to be permanent, but today it's being hardened into a frontier of confrontation where one miscalculation can have dramatic consequences.